Hey, before we get into the devlog, I just wanted to show you guys something that I thought was kind of cool. 10,000 subscribers. I don't know what to say. I didn't think the project would ever get that big. It is really cool. It shows me that there are people out there that are looking for a game like Noia, or are just out there to see if a game like Noia can even be made. And either way, I'll take it. Thank you all very much. And on to the video. Hello everyone and welcome back to Noia Dev, the series that aims to prove that one developer can create a successful MMO RPG. My name is Dane, and this week on Noia Dev we're talking about the bees! I told you guys last devlog that I wanted a large chunk of the Beehive dungeon finished before this devlog, and oh boy, we got some stuff to cover. First, let's talk about how the player will even get into this dungeon. Like the Caverns of the Lost in the Underworld, the Hive has no entrance requirements. There's plenty of lore surrounding the Hive, but it's not required for the player to level up and travel around the world of Noia. Don't get me wrong though, it is in the player's best interest to progress through the main quest line. Not everyone likes quests. I get it. All I'm gonna say is, if you don't do the quest, you can't turn into a cute little bee. What do I mean by that? A mechanic that I finished for this devlog is transformations. Transformations will tie into the crafting system of Noia, allowing players to learn recipes for what I'm simply calling candies. Consuming a candy will transform the player into something else. In the forest questline specifically, the Fae reward the player with the recipe for crafting a bee candy. And as you'd expect, consuming the bee candy transforms the player into a cute little bee. Look at that little guy. If not friend, then why friend-shaped? Transforming replaces the player's current hotbar into that of the transformed creature, and you'll even get some of the attacks and buffs of that transformed creature. Don't worry, your previous hotbar is saved and it will come back when you revert. As of now, transforms last 1 hour and can be cut short by using the revert skill on the hotbar. So what does turning into a cute fuzzy rumped pollinator friend get you? Free passage into the Beehive. If a player enters the hive while transformed as a bee, they will get a wildly different dungeon experience, if you want to call it a dungeon at all at that point. Instead of being attacked on sight by a swarm of hostiles, the player is instead welcomed into the hive as one of their own. They can buzz around, hang out, munch on some honey, and most importantly, talk to some of the more powerful members of the hive in hopes of uncovering the reason the bees are becoming more aggressive as of late. While the denizens of the hive are not aggressive to your presence, they may even offer additional quests. But if the player runs out of time or reverts early, they will be removed from the hive as an intruder. As of now, this friendly version of the hive is a solo dungeon, meaning that any player that enters while transformed as a bee will get their own instance to play in. However, if a player, or more preferably a group of well-armed adventurers, decide to enter the hive while not under the guise of a fluffed up flower napper, they will instead be met with a more energetic reception. The first thing the players will notice about the hive is that there is honey everywhere. Rivers of the stuff. The player can walk in the honey, and the first thing that they will notice is, well, your pants disappear. Yes, I spent 2 days of time creating the proper sprite mask, trigger collider interactions, and debuff type for your pants when you walk in liquids. I digress. While in the honey, the player will be affected by the honey debuff. The player's speed will be reduced by 2 until they step out of the honey, at which point their speed will return to normal. Expect some creatures or bosses in the hive to make use of this debuff. Some may even be able to inflict the honey debuff on the player whether they are submerged in honey or not. Which brings us to the topic of bosses. Mao and Mr. Fox have gone absolutely bonkers with their designs for the Hive bosses, and I am blown away by the speed at which these two have put forth absolutely stunning work. You guys are the best. Hey guys, Future Dane here. Past Dane royally messed up and left something out of the last devlog. Mao finished the resprite of Halia, and look at this dude now. He looks like he actually belongs in the game. All of Halia's attacks now have proper animations to give them a truly dangerous feel to them. This new look has been in the game since last devlog, and honestly, I just forgot to mention. I'm sorry, Mao. Anyway, back to the Beehive. The Hive will have 3 bosses: the Nurse, the Behemoth, and of course, the Hive Queen. As with the monsters and bosses previously in the underworld, the Hive bosses will introduce the player to additional boss mechanics to learn. No boss in Noia so far has introduced ads or whelps or cannon fodder or whatever you want to call them, and that needs to change. Enter the Nurse. This gentle creature's job is to tend to the young of the Hive, and she kind of only has one trick: to call for help and run away. This may seem a bit annoying, but if you get the chance to talk to the Nurse while disguised as a proud owner of a pollen-probing proboscis, all will be explained. Battling deeper into the Hive will bring the adventuring party to the Hall of the Queen, but one does not simply walk into the Queen's throne. No. The party's progress would be halted by a bee that can only be described as an absolute unit: the Behemoth. What the Behemoth lacks in processing power, he makes up for in his culinary prowess, namely making salsa from idiots that try and see the Queen. The Behemoth will combine the lessons learned from the previous bosses: don't stand in red, avoid the charge, and kill the ads. Only this time the ads are not after the player. They want to get to the boss. While working on the design and the attacks of the Behemoth, Mr. Fox made it quickly apparent that this boss would be the most dangerous in the Hive, and I'm okay with that. It isn't uncommon for a mid-boss to actually be more difficult than the final boss, and this guy just radiates danger. So I'm looking forward to kitting out his arsenal to absolutely punch murder any fool harboring malicious intentions toward his queen. And finally, the Queen of the Hive herself. She'll have ads, she'll have AoE attacks, she'll have phases, and can you guess what's about to happen here? You gonna learn something new! These big wings on her back might not be strong enough to lift her off the ground, but they will move you without issue. The Queen will be the first boss in Noia that will be able to move the player. Each boss of the Hive will teach the players a new mechanic: ads with the Nurses, phases with the Behemoth, and player positioning abilities with the Queen. As the players progress through the world and story of Noia, I won't have any qualms about mixing and matching these various new abilities together in some truly difficult encounters. And that's it for this week. There was honestly way more progress made in these past 2 weeks than I thought ever possible. Am I getting better at this? There are a lot of quests and bee sprites that I need to get into the game to fully flesh out the Beehive dungeon, and maybe even some bee-themed weapons and equipment. So I gotta get back to work. So, see you next time. Bye.